AgWeek Weather is sponsored by Bremer Bank. Connect with a banker today at bremer.com.
What will the weather look like as the region rounds out the month of July? Here's John with our Agri-weather outlook.
Late July and the early part of August, often about the hottest time of the year, particularly in dry years, because if it's a little bit drier than average, that soil has a chance to heat up. And we are looking at some hot weather as we move into the first couple of weeks of August. The central part of the country, northern plains down through the western part of the corn bean belt, it has continuously been drier than average throughout this growing season. And these are the areas that are to continue to see some hot temperatures showing up from time to time, and if anything, the drought situation will gradually get a little bit worse, but you may also see a few spotty, timely rains. And that is what they will be. Middle part of the country, rains as they typically are this time of the year, quite spotty, fairly disorganized. I'll show you where the rains will be more organized. But for the time being, hot weather, or at least warm weather, 80s, 90s, maybe a stray spot up near 100. South of the jet stream, there is some cool weather in the eastern Maritimes, but most of North America, including the western part of Canada, going to be setting up for a lot of warm temperatures this week, and a lot of this across the south is in the 90s and 100s. Texas is just pegged in the hundreds, and that's not going to change very much. As two branches of the northern jet stream move down toward the northern plains and across the northern Great Lakes, you will see at least the hot weather drop south. Still going to be fairly warm this coming week with a lot of weather in the 80s in North Dakota and Minnesota, but the real hot weather, the 90s and the 100s, those will be shunted south. But it will stay searingly hot across the southern states, and there are some signs of some 90s and 100s spreading up into western Canada toward the weekend, but that will likely quickly retreat. Looks like the jet stream will remain pretty far north through next week, which is typical for this time of year, but with the dry soils, we are going to see some pretty hot temperatures. At times, 90s, even a few spots up near 100 at times, especially over the western corn belt, which has been, as I mentioned, a little bit drier than average. About those spotty rains, that's about all you're going to see from North Dakota down through Texas and over much of the corn belt. It's the eastern seaboard, which has been getting the plentiful rains this year. That will continue. And as typically happens in late summer, the southwest monsoon will begin to kick in, and that'll bring scattered thunderstorms over some of the southern Rockies. Few of that may spill out into the central plains, but it won't likely make it very far except as spotty storms. The second week in the forecast, which is basically the second week of August, still going to provide rain along the eastern seaboard, only spotty rains in the middle, and the weather along the west coast will continue to be dry. Warmer than average and drier than average is the general outlook for the northern plains and most of the western bean belt for the time being.